Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Daniela Rodriguez, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Programs here at your local Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. We're really thankful that you chose to join us today for the webinar on how to succeed at selling remotely. During this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has really shifted the way we conduct business. So this webinar will be going over the key behaviors that you can implement on helping you scale your sales, and during this time of uncertainty, including the process of having a correct mindset when processing sales. Today, presenting on this webinar is Tanya Thirlwall from Sandler Sales Training. Tanya joins the Sandler team as the Director of Sales for the South Texas region. Her past experience has been implementation of systems, including the point of sale systems for Victoria's Secret, effective accounting and production management software systems for construction companies, and creative financial solutions. She holds a bachelor's from the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas, in international studies and international development with minors in finance and economics, and a second bachelor's in accounting from UTRGV. Recently, she was awarded the IMA's Exemplary Young Professional Award for 2020, and is the incoming president-elect for the IMA's Texas Regional Council. Tanya also sits on the Global Advisory Committee for Diversity and Inclusion for the IMA, in which a toolkit for business owners was recently published for small to medium business owners to use in measuring diversity in their businesses. Her hobbies include community service, motorcycles, and running after her two very active boys. Tanya, welcome to the webinar. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you for taking some time of your morning with me and to discuss this, how to succeed at selling remotely. We're all working from home now. I had to have a small home office built because I have, like we mentioned, I have two boys, they're 4 and they're 3, and we started virtual kindergarten this week as well. So I know a lot of parents are trying to juggle school schedule and work at the same time. So hopefully when we anticipated that this was going to happen, and Sandler has been really on the forefront of this pandemic since January. And we've noticed that some of the key behaviors that we've done while we were traditionally selling are some of the key behaviors that we still need to do today, even if we're selling remotely. So one of the things that, let me see if I can get my next slide to go. There we go. For Sandler Training, a little bit about us, and I'm just going to give you the 30,000 overview view of it. So Sandler Training has been around for over 50 years. We have over 250 franchisee offices. My home office is in San Antonio. It's just recently awarded the Certified Training Center, so there's very few that are actually one of the best training centers, so I'm home to that. I am located here in the Valley. I am here in Brownsville. And our office in San Antonio, along with myself, we have really been the forefront runners in bilingual sales education training, so both in English and in Spanish. I really highlight my CEO, Ángel Salinas, because he actually led a lot of the Spanish training programs in Monterrey for the first 7-8 years that he was with Sandler, and then brought it over to San Antonio. So Sandler Training, we train over 30,000 sales professionals every year. 50% of their salespeople hit their quotas quicker, as to not having it without Sandler. 88% of salespeople saw their sales strategy improve, and over 96% of our clients would highly recommend us. With our programs, it's not just a drop-down menu and you pick what you want. I really want to get to know you and your needs and your business needs, and to see how do we tailor it, how do we make sure we're targeting your industry, your market, and everything of that nature. I'm going to share with you my information right here. It'll also be at the end of the slide, but that is my direct email. That is my cell phone number. Feel free to call me, text me if you need to get a hold of me. And if always, please connect with me on LinkedIn. There's always some videos that we're sharing there. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So understanding the learning process. There's 4 key things that really go into it. One of the best-selling books that we have at Sandler is called You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. So what does that title really mean? What does that convey to you? It's just like in school or when you're going and you're learning your profession. You learn about the topics, you learn the processes, but until you actually apply them, you don't really know how to do it. So the first key is awareness. It's really about how do we ensure that, sorry, the chat box went off. I see the awareness as you realizing that there's something that needs to be changed, that there's something that needs to happen. So from there, you gain the knowledge. From the knowledge, you adapt the skills, and then the mastery is the practice of constantly putting it into place. If you see me looking to the side, it's because I have two screens, so my notes are over here and I'm trying to look at you directly. Mastery is the relentless pursuit of excellence that requires lifelong learning. And that's one of my favorite quotes from Sandler, is the fact that in order for us to become truly a master, we have to have been putting this in practice for our entire lives, that we have to have the discipline. One of the key things about sales is that, and it's just in human nature as well, there are days where we are not motivated. There are days where I do not want to get out of bed. There are days where I just want to stay in my PJs or in my sweats. And that's okay. But I'm disciplined enough to get over that hump. So you may not be motivated every day, but you have to be disciplined enough every day to do the behaviors that get you to the techniques and to the results that you want. So on the next slide, so what is the one thing that you're struggling with selling remotely? One of the things that we hear from our customers is, how do I get in front of the decision maker? How do I get that conversation going? It used to be only 2-3 touch points. Now I'm having to go up to 6 to 10. You know, I used to send an email and I used to get a quick response, and I'm not getting that anymore. I'm being bombarded on LinkedIn. These are some of the key struggles that a lot of business owners are facing. I want to bring up this slide to really get our mindset right when we have this conversation. All crisis is temporary. When it first hit in March and the country kind of went straight down, the first 100 days were very reflective of what 9/11 looked like. If you notice on the graph on the left-hand side, this is what the Dow Jones was looking like during September 11th. Right after 9/11, it was a plummet. For those first 100 days, we were uncertain. We didn't know what to do. We started planning. We started forward thinking past 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. We started thinking as to what was the next step that we needed to do. When we saw the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, we saw it expand a little bit longer, and then it jumped back up. We now know that this may be the new norm, working from home. We now know that this is something that we're going to have to tackle. So our curve is going to look a little bit like 2008, 2009. The question that I have for you right now and where you're at in your business, are you fighting through it? Are you at flight risk, or are you completely frozen? What stage are you in your business? Many of your competitors will use this time as an excuse to stop. They're going to decrease their production. They're going to lower their momentum. It's tempting to stay in our comfort zone. It's very comfortable. We don't like to change. We are uncomfortable in change. We understand that our sales cycles are going to be a little bit longer, and we're okay with that. But here's the thing. Successful people will always find a way. And I've met a few business owners that actually started in the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and they're rocking it right now. They're doing phenomenal. The point of these two graphs is to show that we're going to bounce back. Right after 9/11, we changed. We all changed. We had to think about terrorism as a part of our natural disaster policy now. Now we have to think of, how do we ensure that the mental health and our teams have the tools needed in order to get past this pandemic that we're going through. Sandler's success triangle has 3 attributes to it. The triangle for success is this. It is the behavior that drives the technique, that gives the attitude, that gives the results. The behavior is really going to the behavior is really going to drive a lot. The attitude is really going to drive a lot, and the technique is going to drive a lot. The behavior is the key things that you need to be doing on a daily basis in order to get you to your results. The technique is, how do I accomplish that? So for example, if your behavior is that you need to make 20 cold calls a day, and we're just going to use this as an example. The behavior is 20 cold calls. Okay, that's a measurable KPI. That's a key performance indicator. What's the technique that is needed to make sure that that cold call is successful? Is it a script? Is it researching our clients a little bit better? Is it understanding how to do bonding and rapport? Is it knowing how to grab their attention within those first 30 seconds of talking to them? The technique is going to drive the attitude, because if you have a poor technique, you're going to get a poor attitude. If you have pretty good technique, you're going to get a good attitude. But not all of us will start off with a great technique starting off. It goes back to mastery. It goes back to practicing. It's going back and debriefing and saying, this conversation worked well because I did A, B, and C. This conversation went horrible because I did A, B, and C. We also need to take away and put the blame, and stop putting the blame on the individual and look at ourselves, because you are not accountable and you are not responsible for how that prospect responds, but you are 100% responsible for the way you process it. So these are the three. So the behavior is driven by the techniques, that gives you the attitude, that'll give you the results that you want. This is the triangle of success that Sandler really talks about. The attitude is your philosophy, your beliefs. This is your why. Your behavior is the strategy, the plans and the goals that you have behind it. The technique is the skill and the personal presence. It's the how. How are you doing it? When you connect these three, when you're able to get them going, you develop momentum. You develop the ability to have this, you start going, you start moving, you start creating that ripple effect. So this is really going to be dependent on your outlook. If you start the day, I'm going to have a good day, then you are going to have a good day, no matter what is thrown at you. If you go and say, I'm really tired today, I don't want to be here today, you're going to have a horrible day. It all begins with mindset. So changing your attitude. This is exactly what we do. If we have a belief, we're going to have it already pre-assumed judgment. That judgment is going to be a reflection of our actions, and our actions are going to give us our results. If you change your belief system, if you change something to where, as I said, going back into your mindset and stating, I'm going to have a good day, I am going to believe that everybody is having a great day, and I'm going to talk to everybody in a great way. Your judgment of that person when they answer that phone is not going to be a negative one. It's not going to be something where they're a horrible person, I don't want to deal with them, or, oh, I don't want to have to talk to this person. Your belief is, you know what, I am reaching out to Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so today. They're having a great day. We are going to have a great conversation. That judgment is going to be reflective in the actions, the way you did the call, the way you engaged with them. And your result, hopefully it'll be a great conversation with a great result that you want. But it's about that attitude. It's about really understanding, I'm going to have a good mindset. This week has been very challenging for me, and I will share with you why. I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. Both are enrolled in Martin Elementary, and my 4-year-old is in the PPCD program. So he's it's pre-screen program for children with disabilities. I know it's been changed. So he's got special needs. We do more speech therapy with him and occupational therapy with him. And I know he gets it because I can see it in his eyes, but he's having difficulty sharing it. He also is he doesn't like change very well. So when we started school on Tuesday and we started the Google Meet meetings and everything of that nature, I have to balance my work schedule, my being able to cold call, my being able to do emails, being able to do webinars, and still make him feel comfortable. I could have easily said, this is China's fault. This is because somebody bit the head off a bat. I could have easily said this is horrible. I don't want to deal with this. Or I could say, I am extremely blessed to be in the situation that I'm in. I've been given the opportunity to make my son feel comfortable and know that change is good and that we're able to do it. And I just need to change my calendar to ensure that I do my KPIs to get where I need to do. Have I succeeded? That's to be seen. But has my attitude changed, and has it been coming from a place of gratitude? That was the key. I am grateful that I have the opportunity to take on these challenges. And the week, it's been tough. You have no idea. I've never looked forward to a Friday before, and it's been tough, but it's also been such a great experience because I now know I can tackle both of my son's schedule, my work schedule, my personal schedule, and I'm still getting stuff done. It was that key change in attitude of I'm coming from a place of gratitude. And if you start practicing that, you're going to start seeing the cold calling, the cold emails, everything of that nature really changing. So when we're revisiting our behaviors, we're not meeting in person anymore. We're not doing networking events. I don't get to do lunch and learns with you like this anymore. I have to do webinars. So the new behaviors now are video conferencing. Well, how do I ensure that, I'm being engaged with everybody that's on there? How do I ensure that I'm talking to everybody? By the way, please use the Q&A and the chat. This way I can go ahead and I think they put it in the chat box. If you have any questions or anything, leave them here. So I'll check in on them once in a while so I can make sure that I can answer them as we go through this presentation. So if there's a question that pops up, please feel free to put it in the chat box. But the new behaviors are just like we did after 9/11, like we did after the Great Recession of 2008. We had to adapt, we had to change. So networking events, we're now doing video conferencing, we're now doing virtual networking. And what's really cool about them is that I had somebody tell me, had I met you in person, I probably would not have gone up and talked to you. But because you're behind a screen, I totally want to talk to you all day. The level of comfort and that wall just got broken away. People were just kind of like, okay, I can do this. So in-person calls, we still stop by once in a while. We know that it's safe. Now it's social selling. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on Facebook. I'm very active on Instagram. I'm very active on, I started playing with TikTok a little bit. Oh, it's mixed. But it's how do we use our other social media platforms? When you think about it, you guys have been doing it even before Facebook, even before MySpace. We're talking about the days of AOL and Yahoo chat. We're talking about early 90s when you would see the AOL or the Yahoo and somebody had like different color on their name, and it was just the chat rooms and stuff. That was social selling, if you think about it. So, and how fun was it when you saw somebody had like a different, unicorn mom, and it was all different color? That was fun. That was social selling. We were unique. We were trying to make ourselves different on a virtual platform. So we already have, when people are like, I'm too old to learn, or no, we've been social selling since the boom of the internet in the 90s. You just got to think a little bit outside the box. And of course, your thought leadership webinar like this event, client relationships, it's reaching out. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How are the kids? How are your parents? Have you done the Grubhub lately, or John Green's got some really good deals going on right now. It's just having those, reaching out and developing a better human connection. We're very engaged on our phones and everything of that nature. Now let's make sure that we're using that technology to make sure that we're adjusting. You want to be asking yourself anytime you're doing these new behaviors, how am I adding value? How am I adding value? Don't just do the behavior. Give yourself an expectation as to how you're adding value at the end of this. So developing your technique. If you're not comfortable on Zoom, if you're not comfortable with Google Meets, if you're not comfortable doing Facebook Live, start learning how to do it. Get out of your comfort zone. I am very comfortable being uncomfortable. That was something I had to learn very quickly early on in life, and that is something that I thrive in. I thrive in uncomfortable situations. But I told myself I'm going to thrive in uncomfortable situations. And therefore you move forward and you think of that. So it's current conditions right now, they're perfect for learning. You can literally put your phone on Do Not Disturb for 2 hours and go to YouTube University, and learn something. Learn how to do something of those results. The results are what link technique to attitude. That's how you're going to create that positive link. It didn't work out. Okay, how do I do it differently so I can get a different result? Don't keep doing the same thing over and over again, because that's just the definition of insanity. Now, obviously, if you're working out, the way you work out a muscle repetitively, that gives you results. But when it comes to sales techniques and when it comes to interacting with people, it's This didn't work out. It didn't give me the result. I need to change it. So how do you define a win in your current environment? For me, it's making sure that I get a 20 to 30 minute phone call with somebody, and at the end of that conversation, we make an agreement that we're going to follow up, or it's completely okay in my world to say, I'm not interested, no thank you. For me, that's a win, that I was able to talk to the decision maker. I was able to have a 20-minute conversation with them, and we made a decision right then and there whether or not we were going to move forward with each other's business. Pre-call strategies. You want to research your client, research who you're going to talk. You know, I understand sometimes it may be a little bit difficult, but you can ask for demographics. Try to do as much as you can to talk to that person. When you get them on the phone, have a straight agenda. So the first thing is research. The second is agenda. What are you doing? What is it? Why are you calling them? What are you trying to find out? Prepare for it. I actually pre-write out a lot of my cold calls depending on who I'm calling. So that way I know that I have, because I'm only going to have them on the phone for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. And that's going to let me know if I'm going to move into that 20-minute conversation or not. The upfront contract. The upfront contract, this is a Sandler training strategy. The upfront contract has 3 key aspects to it. The first is the time and the when. So when you're calling that person, you know, what day, the duration, etc. The second part of it is the agenda. You're going to tell them what is going to be accomplished. So I have 1, 2, 3 that I need to accomplish. Is there anything else that you may want to add to this conversation? Is there any other information that you may need from me at this time? And they'll say, you know what, I also want to know about X, Y, and Z. Great. At the end of this conversation, the third part is the decision. Are we going to be able to move forward and have another conversation? Do you need an immediate yes or no? What's the outcome that you're wanting to accomplish? So the upfront contract has 3. The time and when, the duration of the meeting, the agenda for both parties, and the desired outcome. That's it. That is going to be part of your agenda. That's going to be part of your preparation. That's part of your upfront contract. And then on your agenda, if you have that 20-minute or a 1-hour conversation, making sure you have a list of questions that you're going to ask or questions that they may be asking you. Revisit your ideal client profile. Who do you serve best? What are they currently doing? What are their pain indicators? Where are their trigger events? You know, is there pain? What is happening in their world right now that you can provide a solution that you can add value to? It may be a very different client profile now than it was back in January or February. So I want to challenge you and really think of, write it down, see who your ideal client profile was before, and then who your ideal client profile is now. Social selling, we talked a little bit about this. It's using virtual tools and online networks to add more people, opportunities, information to your sales pipeline. If you don't have a CRM, this would be a phenomenal time for you to look into a CRM. I am partial to Pipedrive, and I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but look at your CRM system and see the data that you're capturing. Make sure that it's clean data, that you're able to get good information into it. Any opportunities, information, this is where you're really going to start developing that data. If you weren't data driven before, you're going to have to start being data driven now. This is going to be a really good opportunity for you to also list any trigger events. So when we talk about trigger events, we talk about job changes, work anniversaries. If you know their wedding anniversary, even better. If you know about product launches that are coming up, or if they just launched a new product or product changes, or what's going on in the market change, what's going on in the news, what's going to be affecting. You know, if you have clients in Houston and Louisiana, Hurricane Laura was a big thing right now. We know, and granted, there's a small window, but how do we anticipate all of that? How do we make a change to that? The emails and direct messages, use short subject lines, 3 to 5 sentences, your introduction and your purpose, the pain indicators that they may be having, your unique selling proposition, and the ask, and then follow it up with a call. Hey, my name is Tanya Thirlwall, calling from Sandler. You know, we work with companies that occasionally, you know, they're doing great, but on occasion, they run into an issue that they don't have a correct sales playbook. They want to know if they're compensating their staff correctly. Sometimes it's structural. Too many people are wearing hats. or it's just strategy. I want to talk to see if any of these resonated with you. Can I go ahead and schedule a 20-minute call? That right there was 4 sentences. That's my email. If you get an email, you know, and if you heard it here, you're going to see it in an email. That is my email. 3 to 5 sentences to the point. Because people are getting, on average, business owners are averaging 86 emails a day. They're going to see, you want to have a really capturing subject line, really quick body, boom. And then give them, if you have a Calendly link or anything like that, please schedule it with me. It's just boom, 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 next one, boom, 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 next one. You don't want them to, if they have to sit on an email for too long, they're going to discard it. How do you get there quickly? This is another way of getting in front of your business owner quickly. So follow-up progression. We used to talk about it being 2 to 3, maybe 4 touch points. Now we're looking up to 6 attempts over a 2-week time period. So this is alternating emails, direct messages, texts, and voicemails. 6 attempts over 2 weeks. Increase the amount of information each time in each message, but don't do it to where you're giving unpaid consulting. Call within 5 minutes of seeing a post on social media that you know immediately is going to resonate with you, and then engage with the gatekeepers. Don't try to sneak past them. They have a secretary, if they have a front office personnel, and they're just like, well, they're scheduled, they're busy. Cool, okay. That's their job. They're the gatekeepers. How do you find out if the gatekeeper has a pain indicator? Sometimes if you're able to solve a problem for that secretary or that gatekeeper, they're going to be more willing to go to bat for you and say, you know what, this person has called a couple of times. I actually got a really good vibe from them, or they actually gave me some really great tidbits on what to do and it's helped. I think you should have a conversation with them. Don't jump the herd so quickly, because they're going to have to also buy into whatever it is that you're selling or you're trying to do for them if that person is part of that process. People want to be part of the process. They want to move together. So what are you hoping to accomplish on the pre-call checklist? This is going back again to mindset. Who's going to be participating in the call? How much time is available? What decision will be made? And then did you double check your invite? So this is something, if you already got it scheduled on a calendar for 20 minutes to an hour, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Who are the participants? What time is available? What decision are you going to be making? And then double check your invite. Set strong upfront contracts and make sure you have a necessary plan for rescheduling if necessary. Life happens. Things happen. You know, I may have to call and say, you know, we may need to change it. Prepare yourself for the meeting to what you want to have. Did you check for any referral relationships? If you guys are connected on LinkedIn or on Facebook, you know, do you have any mutual friends, anybody in their friends list that you may want to ask about at the end of the conversation? Check on the dress code and the environment. Are they somebody who's always dressed up and always in a suit and tie, even if they're working from home? Or are they a little bit more casual like myself? Create and publish a clear set of the agenda if you're able to on when you send that calendar invite. Just 3 bullet points, no more than that. Exactly what you want to discuss. If it's going to be on a Zoom or if it's going to be on a Google Meet or a WebJam, did you make sure that the link was listed on there? And then the time zone. I have people that I work with in California, in the East Coast, Mountain Time. So if I say 2 p.m. Central Time, that's 12 p.m. Pacific. So ensuring that everybody's on the same time. What's your biggest concern about your next meeting? One of the biggest concerns that I hear sometimes is the fact that they're worried about internet connection, or they're worried about people being engaged. They're worrying about whether or not the message is being conveyed correctly. When we start thinking about that, we need to figure out the internet. That sometimes we can't control that. If there's a glitch, there's a glitch. But ensuring that there's proper engagement, ensuring that it's in a time where everybody can work together. It may be that some individuals that are in that meeting don't have to be in that meeting anymore. And they were just there in that meeting because it was a physical thing. Look at who you're having these virtual meetings with. And is it necessary to have everybody there, or is it necessary to only have key people? Look at your communication structure when you start thinking about your biggest concern for your next meeting. So best practices for remote selling. Video calls, lightning, you know, the way the light is. I have a Ring, which is kind of a, I'll bring it out. So it's something like this. It's not turned on right now because I have a lot of natural light in my office. But if I'm in a meeting or anything late at night, even though I do have lights above, I have a Ring and it precedes more light. And so it gives a better look. It gives a better way for people to look at. This is something that you may want to consider if you need something like this for your business or for yourself. Eliminating the distractions. I had to, you know, if the dogs are always barking and kids are in the background, see if you can get with your spouse or with your partner or family member, or talk to your boss and say, look, my kids nap between 2 and 3. Can we schedule our calls at that time? Because that's when I know I'm going to be 100% engaged with you and there's not going to be any distractions. Have those conversations, have those abilities, and then focus on the outcome. Run a good call. Don't waste time. Get to the objective as quickly as possible. Modify your connect questions. So we're looking at it from a macro to a micro. First is the industry. What industry are they in? What does that marketplace look like? Talk a little bit about the company, their history, what they're going. Look at their company webpage, and then really focus in on that buyer, about that business owner, that decision maker, and what it is that they're going to be able to do. How is it affecting them? Industry overall. Well, we know in construction's still booming. Here in the marketplace, we're still seeing a lot of growth. You know, here in the valley, we're seeing a lot of growth. How's your company doing? You know, we used to do 2-3 homes a month. Now we're up to 5-6. We doubled. Awesome. And then how are you feeling about that? Make it an emotional connection when you get to the buyer, because people buy on emotion, but they stay and validate the purchase logically. So when you get to that buyer, become emotional. How has the coronavirus affected you, your company, your city, and your industry? And this is a question that you can ask, just flat out ask. You know what? I used to love doing public speaking and people. I used to love being able to see people's reaction and point people out in the crowd on a Zoom meet. Or I got to do it on a webinar. So I know it helps me sometimes when I see people on the panel. How are you doing? How are things going with you? Just, you know, everybody's being affected by it one way or another. So have that conversation. Practice your tone. Tonality is a big thing. Ask these questions to friends and family. Tell them to practice with you. Sometimes I think family may be a little bit too harsh. My mom tends to be very, very direct and honest with me. So, you know, maybe a trusted colleague if you don't want to go that route. But just asking them to listen to your tone, giving you feedback, honest feedback, constructive criticism, not criticism, but I think you should be doing this, this, and this in order to ensure that you are more approachable, more engaged with. So are you setting good upfront contracts on the phone calls, in your emails, and in your invites, at the beginning, at the end of every virtual meeting, when you close a sale? What does that post-sale look like? What does that fulfillment stage look like? How are you still attaining those customers? How are you keeping those? Never end a meeting without a clear future. If you said, I'm going to touch base with you in 2 weeks, I'm going to send you a calendar invite, accept it closer to the date. If you don't accept it, meeting's not going to happen. I'm going to take it as you're not interested. If you say, hey, I still want to meet, I just got to change the time, totally okay too. Give them those options, because some people get very uncomfortable, but if you give them an option, and it also protects your feelings too. Lets you know, hey, they weren't interested, cool, that's fine. You can still do a follow-up email and say, wanted to touch base, we had a meeting scheduled today. We had a tentative meeting scheduled. Is this still something you want to pursue? Yes or no? And leave it at that. Don't make it overcomplicated. Don't make them feel bad. Don't make yourself feel bad. Buying with emotions. 4 buying emotions. The pain in the present, the pain in the future, aka the fear, the gain in the present, and then the gain in the future. So these are the 4 triggering buying emotions that we have. The pain in the present right now, it could be for my customers, it's the sales playbook. It's the sales strategy. How do I, with what's going on with COVID, how do I sell? How do I feel like I'm just kind of lost. Well, if we don't start making some of those changes now, you're going to still feel lost 6 months, 12 months down the road. If you don't take the advantages now, that pain in the future is going to be the pain in the now. So it's not going to go away. So let's start talking about solutions. The gain in the present, when you start doing any type of training, when you start implementing anything, behaviors change day one. Behaviors change on day one when you implement anything new. It's up to the tone, the business owner, those implementing it, to ensure that it's a positive. And then the ROI is that gain in the future. ROI is your return on investment. That gain in the future, what are you anticipating? What are the numbers going to look like? If I start making these changes, I mentioned earlier that we needed to be more data driven. So those key performance indicators, those behaviors that are being done, you're going to look over a 3 to 6 month period when the behaviors are being added, when those techniques are being done. And then you're going to be able to look back and say, we made changes on August 26th. And then we saw this happen over the next 6 months, and where we were at then versus where we're at now. You're going to have to change your 30-second commercial as well. Pain indicator questions and sales pitches to fit a new environment, a new reality, changing motivations, how things happen of that nature. So some of the objections you may be hearing frequently: it's not the right time, we're going to wait it out, cash flow is a little tight. Some of these are things that we're hearing all the time. And it could very well, and I'm not saying to dismiss them, because they are big issues, they are big problems. But if some of it, but you have to find out why they're saying that. So earlier in the presentation, we talked about, are they in the fight mode, are they in the flight mode, or are they frozen? So when somebody says, the timing just isn't right now, you know, I hear that a lot. But let me ask you a little bit more. Why do you feel? I know with COVID, that's the issue. But COVID, if things were back to what they were, would this be a good time for you? Well, no. Well, yes. You have to ask up to 3 questions after their first initial answer in order to really get down to the why they said that. Don't just take it for what it is. You have to pry. It's like an onion. The more you peel it, the stinkier it gets. It's the same thing with asking the question and asking the answer. Asking the question to the answer that they gave you, so you can really get to the core of it. It's just not the right time. Okay, take COVID out of the picture. Would it be the right time now? Well, no. Well, what's going on? Well, my sales are down. Okay, so it's a cash flow issue then. Yeah. Your sales are down because what's going on there? Well, my team just isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're not as motivated as they were before. It's not a right time, not because it's just not a right time. It's not a right time because he can't figure out, or she can't figure out how to motivate her sales team. So I'm hearing that your sales team is not motivated. Do you have a sales playbook by any chance? Or do you have any sales techniques that you guys use? Yeah, but they're not working now. So you've got all that, but it's not working for you now. Have you thought about, if you don't make a change now, what's going to happen in the future? I hear you're saying it's not a right time, but behaviors are showing me that you're going to stay in a frozen state and may end up being in a flight risk. So it's a progression of those questions. It's a progression as to why they gave you that answer. Don't be, and you're never going to be rude if you ask for permission first. If you say, you know what, do you mind if I ask you a few questions as to why you gave me that answer? I just want to get a better understanding. Yeah, go ahead. How that really changes the tone in the conversation, how that really changes the ability for people to get engaged. That's really something that we want to focus on. Keep looking at my watch to make sure I don't run over time. Remember to post sell everything. Even if they say, you know what, this is not going to be a good fit for me. Cool. You know a little bit more about me, about my company, what we do. Do you know anybody that it may benefit actually, or anybody that I could talk to about this who think would be a good fit for it? You know what? Yeah, let me get you Joe's number. Joe may have a really great conversation with you. You know, we want to do everything to prevent the loss of the sale, but if the loss of the sale happens, that's okay. as long as you got something out of it. You still got some, even if it wasn't a gold nugget and it was a silver nugget, you got something out of it. And then establishing the upfront contract and the next steps, following up how you're going to talk to them. You know what? Let me touch base with you in 3-6 months just to see how you're doing. Do you mind that? I like keeping my relationships. Yeah, we'll talk soon. We'll talk soon. And moving it that way. Always post-sell everything. Always follow up everything. So what were their pains? Did you figure out what it was that they were saying? Not with the initial answer, but were you able to dig in and really get into it? Did they have any viable solutions? Were they working on something already? Did they have the time, the money, and the resources to do it? Was there a clear future defined in that conversation? Meaning, did you define what the next step was? And if it was a no, what if that doesn't happen? What's going to be your reaction to it? How are you going to do that? This is your post-call checklist. This is the 5 things that you're going to want to see. Did you accomplish in that conversation? Were you able to get to their pain points? Did you have a solution for them? Did they have the time, money, and resources? Are you willing to give time to this? Do you have the money for it? And then the resources is, is their team going to be on board with it? Or what needs to happen? Building relationships for mutual gain. Build on social capital by giving and listening first. You really want to make sure that you are there to listen to them. People love to talk about themselves. People love to say what they've done, how they accomplished things. Listen to them. Hear what they're saying. Hear their character. Build relationships with them by staying connected. Sending them a white paper, sending them a YouTube link or a podcast, or hey, I read this book, I really liked it, you should check it out. Anything of that nature, building a relationship, because that shows people that you care about them. And build authority by adding value, showing that you are the lead runner in your industry for this, showing that you do have the knowledge, that you have the ability, you have the knowledge, the attitude, and the mastery for it. Mastery is the key thing. And then build intimacy by opening up and being personable. What I did for you guys today, or this presentation, I shared with you my struggle this week of having my 4- and 3-year-old in virtual kindergarten. That was something personal. I shared that my son has a bit of a delay. That was something very personal. I gave you an insight as to who I was as a person so that you could have that connection with me, so you can have those conversations. How's your son doing? How are you doing? How's school going? Same thing with them, with you. My grandmother loved roses, so we have rose gardens, and it could be, oh, you know what, my mother loved flowers too, and it's just, you create that personal connection, and then you're able to move into the next part of that conversation. So when we say building intimacy, it's knowing that personal note of that person. So what is one attitude, behavior, or technique that you may have learned today that's going to help you? If you want to share it in the chat, go for it. If you want to put it in the Q&A, go for it. But you really need to look at one. If you have a list, awesome, because I love lists. But we really want to focus on the attitude. So what's the one attitude you would like to have? So I decided that I was going to go into business for myself late last year. And then because I wanted to work from home and be more active with my kids, and I wasn't going to allow somebody to tell me what my value was. I was going to create it. So my key attitude was I was going to be grateful for everything that came my way, and that there's an abundance for everything. Then 2020 happened, and I maintained that. So that was the attitude. I come from a place of gratitude, and I believe that there's abundance for everybody. Simple. It is simple. It changes the mindset for a lot of things. So then what's the one behavior you will start or you're going to stop doing? Is it procrastination? Is the behavior better prepping for my call? And what does that prepping look like? What's the one technique you will use? Is it, once you start prepping for your call, is it doing a script beforehand? Is it how you debrief a call and you write down your notes for that person? What are the 3 things? So your attitude, your behavior, and your technique. Try to do this practice for yourself or with your team and see how that's going to do. I'm huge on calendar blocking. my calendar looks like a salad because it is so color coordinated. And so I have, you know, my yellows are my yellows for my son's school. So those are, even though they're on my calendar, those are open so I can still kind of schedule things in between there. My green is my revenue producing activities. Those are the activities that I'm either prospecting, I'm talking to people, I'm working, I'm making money during those hours. That's my hourly rate, if you want to look at it that way. My red is my training. My graphic or my gray is my non-negotiables. Those are my time that it's for me, or I have something important that's being done. They're non-negotiables. They're not going to be moved around. And then anything that I have in purple and orange, those are either my social media posts or additional volunteer work that I'm doing. And that's my time. That's my way to give back to the community. Don't forget to schedule exercise. Don't forget to drink water. Find activities that give you the greatest ROI, return on investment, your activity versus the achievement. You know, what's going to make you feel good doing it. Don't get so bombarded about having to do everything for everyone else that you forget yourself. Self-care is, and I know we hear it all the time, and for women, it's very difficult for us sometimes to do it, but self-care is necessary. And you'll find that when you're able to do it, your mind is clear and you're going to be able to not, your time will become much more efficient. Schedule your calendar for work to come to you, not you going to work. I schedule my calendar out 2 weeks in advance. So when I log in every morning, my phone, it goes off, and it's like, I had from 10 to 10, you know, from 10 to 10:30, I was doing this, 10:30 comes off, the next notification comes on, whatever project that I was working with, it's done. I gave the time that it needed. If I need to follow up or need to do more with it, I'll go ahead and add it to my following week or the week after, depending on the urgency. Schedule your calendar as work going to you, not you going to work. And this will really help you, because then now you're checking it off, and you're going to check off a lot of things that you're going to need to be doing. So I have an offer for everybody that was on here. So if you go to sandler.com/sell, this is going to be a free 12-month to our Sandler online library for the different podcasts, for a few white papers, just to give you some of the understanding of what's going on with Sandler, some of the tidbits that we may have, some information that maybe help you out in any way possible. This is just a really good resource for you to get more acquainted with Sandler so you can have a better understanding of it. My information is here. That is our company website, ssa.sandler.com. So it's Sandler Training, Sales San Antonio. We do all our training virtually. We do some training in person, but we're very COVID. we're very much into COVID. So we try to do as much virtual training as possible, but we do understand the need for sometimes to do in-person training. And we'll do that if you need that. That is my LinkedIn. That is my email. I have MQIR underneath there as well. If you want to email me and if you want to reach out to me, the M is going to stand for meeting. Put the M in the subject line, and then put in your body what you want to meet about, what you want to discuss. If there's anything that resonated with you today that you want to meet on and have further conversations, put the M in the subject bar. So that way I know I know what the context is. If you have a question of anything that I said today that you want further clarification on, and you want a 20-minute meet just to go over that question, put Q in the subject line. That way I know you have a question and I can come with resources for you. There's an indication that this may be something that you may need. There's an interest for you personally. Go ahead and put it on there. If you know somebody that would benefit from sales training, or that I should be having a conversation with, put R in the subject line so I know it's a referral. And this just helps me help you get to your resources, make sure that your time is being valued and that you're getting the needs that you need. So I hope, I try to make sure we stayed on time. So if there's any questions or if there's anything that I may answer for you right now, please let's put it in the chat box, or Danielle, if you have any from Facebook.
Hi, Tanya. First of all, thank you so much for the great presentation. I found it really useful, and the way you presented the information was really conversational, in the fact that you may not know what our attendees are saying or thinking on the other side, but you kind of give like plant the thought in their minds about, you know, the certain things that you were talking about. I don't see any questions on the Facebook comments or on the chat section, but I can go ahead and start off with a question that I have myself. And you discussed the several means of communications that we have due to COVID-19. You know, we've gone virtual and have new digital tools in our pockets, right? But how do you decide what means of communications to use? That way you're not wasting the time of somebody else, or maybe they're not comfortable being on camera. How do you decide, you know, what tool to use to communicate with them?
One of the things I said early on was we now have to be more data driven. We have to be now more aware of our key performance indicators, of our behaviors, of what's going on. And so what I've noticed is that I finally get with my, and I'll share my personal, that when it comes to behaviors, the third call tends to be where I finally get contact with them. So I do 4 calls. So the 10 behaviors that I have is that I have 4 calls, 3 emails. So that's 7, and then 2 LinkedIn messages, and then 1 social media. What I've noticed in my data and what I've done so far is that the third phone call and the second email is when I get a reaction from them. I noticed that on LinkedIn, if I send them a message, people aren't always looking at it because LinkedIn is now becoming so undated. But if I do a post and I tag them in the post, and I don't recommend tagging 5, 10, 15, 20 different people in a post. I recommend only tagging 1 or 2 people in a post that is extremely relevant to them. So if you go on a scale of 1 to 10, how relevant is this to them? You know, they got to be a strong 8 or 9 for you to want to tag them in that post. Don't tag them just to tag them, because then you're gonna turn them off, and they may end up turning off notifications from you, and that's not what you want. You want to stay in the conversation, peripheral, but not in their face all the time. So for me, it's still the cold calls. You know, it's the third cold call, and it's definitely the second email. But we're seeing that we have to touch people more than we did before.
Yeah, especially with people having, you know, having to have their own like hands in their own schedule, whether they're working from home, because, you know, you might be distracted by your kids, or, you know, what's going on in the kitchen while you're working, and your mind tends to drift. So, you know, having that, you know, constant communication and being personal with somebody can really help somebody that's in a sales position, but also in any position as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Chris ask if we could have a copy of the presentation. So Chris, I believe I have your email, so I will send it to you.
And then I can also follow up with all be registered through Zoom with the link for sandler.com/self and your contact information. That way, if anybody missed out, or maybe they didn't get to write down your information, they can have it. And then I'll be sending everybody a copy of the actual recording for this webinar as well.
Okay, very good. Awesome.
Now, if there is no questions or comments that you have right now, as I mentioned, I'll send you Tanya's email that we can ask her directly. But Tanya, thank you so much for taking the time to present today. As I mentioned, it was really useful. We do appreciate, you know, the time you took to give this valuable information. We're seeing a lot of great work, thank you comments in Facebook, on, you know, the Zoom chat. So that message is resonated throughout, you know, both platforms, and we look forward to working with you soon.
No, well, thank you for letting me be of service to you guys. I really do appreciate it. So I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you, everyone. Please have a great and safe day. We'll see you next time.
All right, y'all take care. Bye.